Good afternoon, conversation 3. I hope you are enjoying the beautiful spring weather. Air quality is not too bad so far. Yellow dust is probably on its way. So after you do your homework and you read your lecture and you check out your textbook, I suggest you enjoy the beautiful spring weather. Today our topic has nothing to do with outdoors or spring, really. It's related to electronics. Now, there is sort of a bit of confusion sometimes, as far as I understand, between electric and electronic, because in Korean you usually say janja, which, as far as I know, it can mean both. But in English, it doesn't. An electrical device is just something that uses electricity, but an electronic device actually has some sort of semiconductor. It has a chip in it. Okay, so an electronic device is electric, but an electric device can be just something like you plug something in and like a tool, like a power tool, and it has no electronic chip in it. It just spins. It's just a mechanical thing that is powered by electricity. Nowadays, almost everything's electronic, so it doesn't really matter. But just so you know, there is a difference between electronic and electric. When you pay your, for example, you don't pay your electronic bill, you pay your electric bill every month. All right? So that's just a small thing. This chapter is kind of, well, some of the things are a little bit outdated. There's a picture of a digital camera there. I haven't seen that many digital cameras these days because our smartphones are so, the phone's camera are so sharp and so accurate and high resolution and so high quality. When I was young, we used to run around with the Samsung PowerShot, and that was like a mini cool little camera before the smartphones had cameras, because it was just a cell phone, so you had to have both. Now it's one device. So there's a lot of devices that are being combined so that they can have multi-functions. So you don't need as many devices as you used to. Some people don't. You don't need a phone in your home. You don't necessarily need a camera. You don't even really need a computer sometimes, because you can just use the internet and play games and send and receive emails on your smartphone. Now, I don't want to talk about smartphones too much, because smartphones are the default topic every time I do this chapter. But I do want to talk about, if you do want to talk about smartphones, I would like you to talk about, rather than talk about all the features that it has, because we're all aware of that, I would like you to take a particular angle. And again, this is kind of the difference between lower level conversation classes in this department and this one. I would like you to always kind of be a little bit more critical of the topic, okay? So don't just describe to me all the things that your smartphone can do. I would like you to be critical. I would like you to talk about, if you're gonna talk about your smartphone, talk about some health effects, or how it distracts you, right? Or how the time you spend using your smartphone is detracted from other things. I know a smartphone saves time. Instead of driving to the shopping mall and buying an item and driving home, you can just go on to Gmarket or Coupang or whatever, or KakaoTalk and whatever, do your shopping in several minutes and then have it delivered to your house. That's efficiency, of course, but how much are you missing when you're walking down the street with your head bent over, staring at your phone, and you're not looking around at the world? You're not meeting anybody, you're not talking to anybody, you're not noticing anything, you're not reading any books. All you're doing is staring at a screen all day, and you're completely absorbed by that. I wonder how much that's going to affect your development, right? If you can't put your phone down, I use my phone for work. And so I have a love-hate relationship with my phone. At the end of the day, I sit down and I watch some YouTube, or I watch some hockey highlights, sports highlights, something funny. I have Netflix I can watch it on my phone if I want to. But for the majority of the day, I'm using it for work, for texting, for emails, for research, for communication, for sometimes for recording, depending if my, some of my equipment doesn't work. I always have a backup. My phone can always do it because it has a built-in microphone. I can do Zoom calls, etc., etc. If you look at the screen time, my phone keeps track of it and lets me know. The amount of time gets ridiculous. It's sometimes 8 or 9 hours a day. That's a lot of time. Some of the time I spend is just listening. I have to include that because I have an application that does audiobooks and stuff like that. So whatever way you want to talk about a device, because I am going to ask you to talk about devices, try and think of, if you're going to go after the smartphone thing, don't just describe how cool it is. Maybe talk about all the negative effects of it, or talk about how smartphones can be addictive. Everybody's well aware of the advantages. Apple and Samsung do a great job of promoting all the advantages and advertising how great a smartphone is and how you have to have one. So take a different angle. Otherwise, I would like you to talk about some other sort of device, and you don't have to limit it to one, right? This whole chapter is not just simply about devices, it's about new technology. So on page 27, they mention things like computer viruses and solar energy and medicine. So you don't actually have to, a device is a thing that you use, but there are programs and there are whole fields of technology. Now remember, I'm going to ask you to talk about some sort of device or new technology. That's the topic. So you get to choose. If you choose something like medicine, you should probably narrow it down, right? You can't talk about all the new developments in medicine. You could talk about COVID vaccines if you want. You can talk about new experimental cancer treatments if you want. You can talk about computer viruses. You can talk about new companies that are developing new products. You can talk about that creepy robot from Boston Dynamics that can dance and fight and jump up and down stairs and stuff. I find those videos very creepy personally, but yeah. It's probably not going to work for you to just talk about one of these, devices on the first page, which are really commonplace now. Talking about your refrigerator or a vacuum or an oven or a blender or a dishwasher, it really doesn't cut it. So you're going to have to talk about something maybe experimental, or talk about something in detail that has some sort of, effect on society, or some health effect. Some benefit or some demerit, some disadvantage or advantage. And I want you to talk about it in detail. I do want you to analyze a little bit, not just describe. Okay, this is conversation 3. So I want some good answers here, right? I want you to think about them, and I want you to give me some critical analysis. Okay? So there's a few stories in here, but one of the things that the chapter deals with, and I think you understand the topic now, what I'm looking for. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we call phrasal verbs, okay? And phrasal verbs are basically, it's sort of a vocabulary shortcut, but it's also a more comfortable way of speaking, and it's better applied to speaking. It's sort of a conversation device, okay? Instead of searching for exactly the right word, you might just put 2 short words together, usually a verb and a preposition, and this would, substitute for a higher level formal word. So We use them all the time, and we develop them too. And technology has caused us to develop new phrases, and some of them are kind of they're left over from old technologies that we have developed, right? So when you say when you want the light on, you say turn on the light, but the light doesn't turn; it flicks or it switches. It's a switch. You can say switch, and in British English usually they say switch on the light, but in America you don't. You say turn on the light. Because lamps, I still have them in my house, but the ones on the wall are usually a button or a switch. But and sometimes there's a dial, but they used to you used to in a lamp have to turn it to turn it on, and then turn it again to turn it off. So we always say in American English or Canadian English, you don't usually say switched on. You say turn on the lights, turn off the lights. But you can say switch on or switch off. And if you live in the United Kingdom, you may be more likely to say that. Just so you know, though, when you say something switched on, it also means cool. Phrasal verbs are like that. Usually they have a literal meaning, and they also have a figurative meaning too. So, in that movie Austin Powers that none of you have seen before because you're too young, but there's a there's a parody of James Bond. There's a silly parody of James Bond. The character is Austin Powers, and it's a Canadian guy named Mike Myers, who's short and not that handsome, who plays a James Bond figure, and he uses a lot of British slang. And whenever he sees an attractive woman or an exciting situation, he always says, switched on. That's switched on. So switched on means attractive. And we say that in American English too. To be turned on means to be aroused. In other words, if something turns you on, it could be sexually, but it could just be like something that really makes you excited or makes you happy. But it can mean that too. If something turns you on, the person might be referring to, if they're talking about a person, if you turn a person on, that's making them excited, like stimulated sexually, or making them attracted to something, okay? So just to be aware, a lot of these words have some literal meaning and some figurative meaning. So when you're talking about an object and you turn on an object, that's a lot different than talking about a person being turned on, because that's a different thing. Most frequently, we talk about machines or lights that get turned on or they get turned off. And I'm going like this, even though it should really be like that. But that's where the phrasal verb comes from, right? Hold on is another really common one. You need to know the phrasal verb hold on, because hold on literally means to put your hands on something and grab it and don't let go. But if you say it to a person and you say hold on, that means wait. That doesn't mean grab me or grab something. It could be. If there's an earthquake and they say hold on, that means grab something so you don't fall on the ground. But if you're in a line or you're expecting something, you're waiting something, somebody says hold on, what they're trying to say is just, hold yourself there. Don't maintain your position and don't move forward, right? Okay. I'm just gonna keep doing a few examples because I think these are pretty common. You may not have used them, or you may have, but you should use them because they're easy to use and they're so applicable in so many situations, not just in technology. Let me see. To carry on or keep on is both very famous British phrasal verbs. Carry on means to keep going without stopping, right? It means to continue, to persist, to proceed without stopping. That's one of the most famous slogans from World War II when they were being attacked by the Germans. They just declared, the propaganda poster was keep calm, and carry on, right? Bombs are dropping, the Germans are trying to destroy our country, but the best thing to do is just continue and proceed like it was everyday life. And that seemed to have a positive effect on the population. They did seem to continue to go through the motions of daily life despite the fact there were bombs dropping all over the city. I carry on, not a phrasal verb, but to carry something onto an airplane turned into this noun phrase where a small piece of baggage, a small piece of luggage is called a carry-on, right? Okay. To keep on means the same thing. Just keep on means carry on. Keep doing, persist, continue what you're doing. Okay. We did switch on and switch off. So let's do a few with off. Good one to know. Call off. Call off means to cancel something or postpone. So when you say that something's off, call off, that means, maybe it's raining, so we can't play. We'll have to delay it to another time. Or there's supposed to be a meeting, but nobody's available. So calling off something is canceling it. It's a little less formal than saying postpone or cancel. So sometimes if somebody's going to be more direct and just say, and they're frustrated, they might say, okay, call it all off. That's it. Forget it. Cancel it. Call it off. I'm not going to do it. Okay. Let's see. Put off is the same kind of thing, but that just means delay, not cancel. So if you're going to say call off, likely it means there's some sort of abrupt reason. There might be some mistake or some frustration involved, and or the weather, some sort of circumstances that make it impossible. Whereas put off is probably not wanting to do your homework or delaying something until later just because I don't feel like doing it right now, or I'm tired, or it's not due until next Wednesday, so I'm not going to do it today, so I'll just put it off until later. Make off is an interesting one, because make off, when you make something, it sounds like you're doing something good, but if making off with something means taking it away. So if you make off with something, for example, like the ex-employee made off with $200,000 of company money, that means he stole it. He ran away. He took off with the money. Take off also is the same kind of thing. Take off means flying in an airplane, but take off also means remove your clothes, and take off also means just leave. You can just say, oh, I have to take, it's 11 o'clock, it's time for me to take off. That means it's time for me to go home. Okay? So phrasal verbs are, the main grammar point for this chapter. So like I said, this is, when you write your paragraph, you're trying to write a paragraph in preparation for the midterm where it's an interview. So phrasal verbs are good. When you're writing an essay, you probably don't want to use these words because they're too familiar and they don't work as well when you're trying to explain things exactly. But when you're trying to give an impression and you're trying to be efficient, keep the conversation flow going, these words are great. This is how we talk, right? We prefer to use phrasal verbs rather than formal, larger vocabulary, which is sometimes more difficult to remember or more difficult to pronounce. So make use of your phrasal verbs. Go ahead and use them in your homework too. Like I said, keep it to around half a page, because I do want your answer to be somewhere around 2 minutes, okay? I think many of you in this class have already taken conversation classes with me, so you kind of know what to expect. We're going to do this over Zoom, so that's a little bit different. But basically, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Your conversation 3, so I'm not going to ask you the introduction question because this might be repetitive. I always make conversation 1 and conversation 2 do the introduction question, but I still wanted your introduction because I just wanted to know, if I haven't met you before, what you're like. But we're going to end up with a pool of 5 or 6 questions by the time we get to week 8 and we do our midterm. So so far we've got these 3, right? Happiness in chapter 2 was getting a job, and chapter 3 is technology, right? Especially electronic devices, but all kinds of technology. And those are the 3 topics that we've got so far. And we'll do homework for a couple more weeks until I have a collection of about 5 of your answers. And those answers will be the basis for your interviews. So your homework is also a source for you to study. Of course, when I go through these textbooks, if we were in class, we would probably do a little bit more of the exercises, but I'm leaving this up to you. You know, there's lots of examples. There's mixing and matching, and there's vocabulary, right? And there's things for you to listen to. So they can give you ideas about what you want to talk about. They give you lots of vocabulary for electronics, like press, to press, a switch, a cord, turn off, unplug, a button, and so on. There's always sort of a little paragraph, a little passage, and this just gives you an example for you to analyze, right? There's a story about somebody texting and stopping a thief, right? So we all know there's CCTV all over the place now. That might be an option. The pros and cons of having CCTV everywhere. Recently, people have been discussing about how much we should have them around schools, and how much people should, how much information the government should have when they're watching people, and whether this is important for safety versus privacy. These are the things that I would like you to, consider when you write your answer. Don't just tell me that CCTV does this, and this is why how much this is costs, and we have this many in Korea, and we usually put them around the schools and so on. I want you to tell me why we do it, and whether you think it's a good idea, or what the negative effects of these things are, and so on. So the young woman here, if you read the passage a little bit, the young woman couldn't believe her eyes when she received the text from her friend. "I'm trapped in a bank that's being robbed," he wrote. The young man wasn't convinced. "Are you joking? Where are you really?" She calmly replied. "I'm not joking. The Century Bank is being robbed right now, and I am inside," screamed his answer. And you scream in text by doing all capitals. So if you want to get somebody angry, or you want to show that you're screaming, you turn on the caps lock and then you type that. Finally, the young woman was convinced by her friend's desperate description of the predicament, and she alerted the police. Police units were immediately dispatched to the scene. So somebody was in a bank robbery in progress, and they used their phone to contact somebody, and that person contacted the police. Pretty dangerous situation to be in. So yes, technology does have its, obviously it has its advantages. So I would like you to choose a field of technology, a piece of technology, even a sort of situation where a technology might be applied, and explain how it can be used. I'm particularly interested in how technologies get used in ways that they're not meant to. That's always interesting too, when technology is designed and then it gets used in a way that's completely different. Drones, of course, were a military development, and they're designed for scouting and then for being used as weapons. And now we've got all kinds of things, like drones are toys, drones are delivery devices, drones are, can be used to go into places where there are fires and find where people are trapped. We have drone sports. Drones can fly in races and win prizes. There's drone entertainment. You can use drones to record, make movies. You can use drones to record football games. The technology is spread all over the place. A lot of technology that was designed for military purposes ends up being adapted to civilian purposes and improving our lives. So consider all those things that I've mentioned and try and make use of your phrasal verbs just to make your writing sound a little bit more conversational. And that will be your homework, not for this week, but for the following week, because remember, we're way ahead. But I like it like this because it's better than being anxious and nervous every week to get the lecture out just on time and let you know about the homework. So you're still working on, for this upcoming week, you're still working on the job thing. And then not this week, but the following week, I would like you to discuss some technology. And that's all for today. So this lecture will be going up tomorrow, which is Tuesday. And enjoy the beautiful spring weather. And we'll talk to you again next week. Have a good day.